Good night. Good night. Hmm. Okay. Hello, guys. We are live. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry for the slight distraction. We are live. And we are looking at Luke chapter 23. Okay. So let's begin with our learning. Then the whole multitude of them arose. Okay. So what was the multitude? The multitude is the people that are gathered into the house of one of the high priests where Jesus was taken. Okay. That is the multitude of people. Okay. And they led him to Pilate, Pontius Pilate. Okay. And they begin to accuse him, saying, "We found this fellow perverting the nation," which was a lie, "and forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar," which was a lie, because that's not what he said. What he said was, and my video is doing that stupid stuck thing again. Okay, so what he said was not forbidding us to pay taxes to Caesar, but what he said is simply put that, and I have to reload this thing because it's being stupid. So if the video is still going, what he said was not that he forbade people from paying Caesar, but give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's. Okay, so that's what he said. Oh man, I hate this internet is getting on my nerve. Especially when I'm watching back on the video, it's like, I don't like you, Satan. And he's saying that he himself is Christ, a king, which he did say. That is accurate. He did actually say that. The other two were lies, but the third one was accurate. An accurate saying about Christ. Okay. Now, I don't know if the video is messing up like it is on my end, but this thing keeps freezing on my side. So, anyway, I'm going to just try my best to continue with the video. Then Pilate asked him, saying, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He answered him and said, "It is as you say." Okay. So Pilate said to the chief priests, why is my internet doing that? Okay. Said to the chief priests, Pilate said to the head priests and to the crowd, "I find no fault in this man." There's a word for that. Above reproach. Okay. Above reproach. But they were more fierce, saying, "He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea. Now that's actually true. He stirred up many people's feelings. He challenged many people's views of themselves and what they thought about themselves. Okay? Beginning with Galilee to this place. Now that's true. All of that is very true. Him and I. All of that is very true. Okay? He stirred up many people with many different feelings and things like that. Okay? And he challenged them many times. Wow, my cats are going crazy. Hello, Rabelin. I don't know if the video is messing up like it is on my end, but it's being all sorts of stupid. Anyway, let's continue. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked if the man was a Galilean. And as soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, okay, network is not good. Yeah, I agree. The network is not good on my side too. It's being all sorts of stupid. I'm trying my best here, but it's just like right now it just froze a moment ago. Now it's freezing again. So yeah, yeah, I don't know what's going on. Oh, and it keeps moving, like the page keeps moving up and down, which gets on my nerve. Anyway, let's try our best to continue. Okay. When he realized that Jesus belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. Okay. Stupid Facebook. I hate you. Anyway, so everybody has authority over them, and so he's realizing that Jesus is under the authority of Herod's jurisdiction, so he's sending them to Herod. Okay, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. Now, when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceedingly glad. He was very happy about it. For he desired for a long time to see him. He wanted to see and to learn about Jesus. He wanted to figure out who Jesus was and if Jesus could benefit Herod. Now, this is the same Herod that killed all the kids in an attempt to kill the Christ, by the way. Same Herod, okay? Because he had heard many things about Jesus, and he hoped to see many miracles done by him. He wanted to witness miracles. He wanted proof. Then he questioned him with many words, but he answered him nothing. Jesus answered Herod nothing. Same principle is why only select things he would answer, but majority of the stuff that was charged against him, said against him, he would not answer it. He didn't defend himself. Okay. And the chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him, like passionately accused him. Then Herod, with his men of fighting, treated him with contempt, treated Jesus with contempt and mocked him, arraying him in a gorgeous robe, dressing him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him back to Pilate because Herod was not going to convict him. Herod was like, no, this guy's a fool. I'm not going to bother with this. There's a verse here, Isaiah 53:3. Isaiah 53 verse 3. Isaiah 53 verse 3. That very day, Pilate and Herod became friends with each other. For previously they had been at enmity, meaning opposite. They had been at war with each other. They had been at war with each other. They had had many problems, many fightings. Quit doing that, stupid computer. And then Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, said to them, "You have brought this man to me as one who misleads the people. And indeed, having examined him in your presence, I have found no fault." The word for that is above reproach, right? I have found no fault in this man concerning those things of which you accuse him. In other words, there's no proof for what you're saying. Neither did Herod, for I sent you back to him. So Herod also found no fault. Pilate found no fault. Herod found no fault. And indeed, nothing deserving of death has been done by him. He's not guilty, in other words. I will therefore chastise him and release him. Okay, this was Pilate's attempt to challenge the high priest. He was like, I'm just going to whip him and that'd be it, and put this behind us. For it was necessary for him to release one of them at the feast. And they all cried out at once, saying, "Away with this man, and release to us Barabbas," okay, who had been thrown into prison for a certain rebellion made in the city and for murder. Now, there's something to take into account here. So you can relate to the story. So let me relate. Barabbas was guilty of what he did. You are guilty of what you did. I am guilty of what I did. Christ is not guilty of anything. He didn't do anything. Okay? So Christ is innocent. Stupid video. Stop freezing. Once can the video actually work right without messing up? Stop moving up and down, stupid thing. Okay, again, the premise that I'm trying to make here is that we're guilty, Christ is innocent, and yet Christ is the one that takes our place for our guilt. He's the one, even though we're guilty and he's innocent, he's going, okay, I'm going to pay the price. I'm going to take your place. I'm going to pay the punishment that you deserve. And that's a very humbling statement when you realize the significance that he takes your place. Okay? Pilate, therefore, wishing to release Jesus, again called out to them. He repeated the same thing. He was like, this man's not deserving of death. Let's try again. Okay? But they shouted, crying, "Crucify him! Crucify him! Crucify him!" So let me clarify this. Every time that you commit sin, you are screaming, "Crucify him." Every time that you do what you want to do instead of doing what God wants you to do, you are screaming, "Crucify him." Okay? Then he said to them the third time, "Why? What evil has he done? I have found no reason for death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go." But they were insistent. They were persistent. They were like, "We're not letting this go," demanding with loud voices that he be crucified. And the voices of these men and of the chief priests prevailed. So Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they requested. Now, what's going on is that mankind and the spirit of Satan is trying to get rid of Jesus, thinking that by crucifying him, they are interrupting his plan. not realizing that crucifixion and the payment of dying on the cross is exactly what God wanted, which is why it occurred. Okay, because if it was not what God wanted, it would not have happened. Okay, and he released to them the one they requested, who for rebellion and murder had been thrown into prison, but he delivered Jesus to their will, to the will of them, to what they wanted. Now, the basic idea of why Pilate does this was he didn't want another rebellion, because in the city of Rome, anytime a rebellion is seen to have happened, usually it means a change of who's in authority. Whoever's in authority is basically showing that they're not able to do a good job, so they end up doing that and basically removing them and putting somebody new in and stuff like that. So basically Pilate is worrying about his job, worrying about his livelihood, going, I need to stop an uprising from occurring, which was why he gave into the request eventually. The verse here is Isaiah 53 verse 8. Isaiah 53 verse 8. Isaiah 53 verse 8. Okay? Now they led him away. They grabbed a hold of a certain man named Simon, a Cyrenian, so from the country of Syre, who was coming from the country, and on him they laid the cross that he might bear it after Jesus, meaning to help carry it with Jesus. And a great multitude of people followed him, and the women who also mourned and lamented. Mourned and lamented. So mourn, which is to cry, and lament, which is meaning to, looking it up real quick here, L-A-M. And lament is to mourn loudly, to wail, to have great sorrow or regret. So very sad, very mournful, very painful mourning. Like so you have mourning, and then you have this weeping, this crying, this great pain, emotional pain. Okay. But Jesus turned to them and said, Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. Do not weep for me, because what I'm doing is the Lord's will. Weep for those who are not doing what I want. In basic form. For indeed the days are coming in which they will say, Blessed are the barren wombs that never bore, and breasts that never nursed. Okay? So blessed are those that are barren, that have no kids, and the wombs that bear no kids, and breasts that never have nursed. Okay, blessed. Why would it say blessed are these type of people that never had kids, right? Because we know kids are a blessing, right? Basically, in the end times, it's going to be so difficult for people to raise kids in a good way, in a godly way. So it's more blessed at this time to not have kids, because of what's to come. You don't want your kids to suffer. Like I'm still thinking about, like, basically what I'm doing right now is, in my mind, I'm thinking about my son and my daughter, how they're teenage years right now. When Jesus comes, they're going to be alive. If they're not taken to heaven, they're going to have to deal with all this stuff, and that's a suffering that I do not wish my kids to go through. You know, so I pray that they get taken at the rapture. But if they don't, I don't know. So that's kind of the basic concept here for this. And of course I had the Wi-Fi on my phone, which probably then they will begin to say to the mountains, fall on us, and to the hills cover us. Now there's a verse here, Hosea 10:8. Hosea 10:8. Hosea 10:8. Okay? They will begin to say to the mountains, fall on us. This is in reference of many people are going to go into hiding at the rapture, and then at the when the pour out of the seals. Okay, for if they do these things in the green wood, what will be done in the dry? Okay, Jeremiah 25:29. Jeremiah 25:29. Okay, let's look at that again. For if they do these things, what things? Right? What things are they talking about? If they weep and cry in the green wood, which is out in out in hidden places, because the woods is like filled with trees and stuff, so it's closed off and it's kind of secluded, right? What will be done in the dry places, in public, basically? Verse here is Isaiah 53, 9 and 12. Isaiah 53 verses 9 and verses 12. Okay. And when they had come to the place called Calvary, okay, there they crucified him and the criminals, one on his right hand and the other on his left. Now remember, there's significance with that, because the same here, listen to this. Christ in the middle, one on the right, one on the left. Who's sitting at the right hand of God? Jesus, right? More than that, what side of heaven is he going to put the people that love him on? The right side, right? To the right grouping, he says, come and enjoy in my, you are welcome in the inheritance. To the left side, he says, be gone from me, I never knew you. So there's significance of connection of right and left in the Bible when it comes to that, okay? Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. In other words, they don't understand the spirit that's at the heart causing them to act the ways that they choose to act. This is why I tell people many times, you need to pay attention to the spirits behind things, not necessarily pay attention to the actions, but pay attention to the spirits that's causing it. Okay? Example, in the later times, when Judgment Day comes, right? He's going to say to many people are going to say to him, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not go in the street corners and prophesy and preach in your name? Right? Although they did the right actions, they didn't have the right spirit. Does that make sense? Okay? They do not know what they do. They do not understand where their thoughts and where their actions are coming from. Stop my Facebook. You know, this was much easier when I was using my data on my phone. Thank you, by the way, NJ, for dropping that. I see that in the comments now. And hopefully this video is going to preach in your name. Right? So thank you for assisting. I really appreciate it. Although they did the right action, so it's much easier. Turn off the sound so there's no in your name. Right? So thank you for assisting. I really appreciate it. Off the sound. There. Okay. You're going to have to forgive me with my frustration of technology. I cannot stand technology. Technology just pisses me off a lot. Okay? But let's continue. Let's push through this frustration. Let's push through my feelings and frustrations of this stupid technology. Let's push through this and just work through this, okay? Right from left. There's going to be a separation. Do you understand that? Okay. Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And they divided his garments and cast lots. Now this is biblical scripture being revealed in the Old Testament that this would take place, that they would divide all of his possessions. Okay. At his crucifixion of the Messiah. And the people stood looking on, but even the rulers with them sneered, saying, He saved others, Let him save himself if he is the Christ, the chosen of God. It wouldn't matter if Jesus came down off that cross. Okay? They would have not believed him. The verse here is Psalms 22, verse 17. Psalms 22, verse 17. Psalms 22, verse 17. Okay? Psalms 22, verse 17. Okay? The soldiers also mocked him, coming and offering him sour wine, which was also biblical prophecy being fulfilled, right? And saying, if you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. And an inscription also was written over him in letters of Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. And the word said, in all three languages, Greek, Latin, Hebrew, this is the king of the Jews. Then one of the criminals who were hanging blasphemed him. Now remember, that's saying words with no respect, with disrespect basically. Okay. If you are the Christ, save yourself and us. You know what? Even if I don't have any closed captions, I'm going to start doing this on my phone because this stuff is pissing me off. But the other one, answering, rebuked him, saying, do you not even fear God? Do you not have fear for God? Seeing you are under the same condemnation. Basically, one of the prisoners or criminals was guilty, realized that he's guilty of his punishment, accepts it, and then welcomes the Holy Spirit coming down and resting upon him to have discernment in order to say and have respect for God and seeing that he's deserving of the condemnation. The other one is letting everything get in the way of understanding things. And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But in other words, we're guilty of what we're being punished for. We're guilty. We are guilty of our consequence. We did the action. We're guilty. Then he said to Jesus, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Remember, he didn't ask for anything. He just said, remember me. That's it. Just remember me. And Jesus said, so when he remembered me, he's humbling his heart to say, Lord, if all you do is remember me, that's all that matters. Okay? And Jesus takes it a step further and says, I won't only remember you, but you're going to be welcomed into my kingdom because you have the correct heart. Then he said to Jesus, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus said to him, assuredly, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. Now this is actually referencing Revelations 2:7. Okay? But we don't have to worry about that. Now it was about the 6th hour. That's roughly sometime between 6 and 9 or 9 and noon. Okay? The 6th hour. And there was darkness all over the earth during the daytime until the 9th hour. Okay? Then the sun was darkened, and the cloth of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And remember, the reason it was torn from top to bottom is to signify that there's no longer, we no longer have to use priests or high priests or sacrifices in order to be welcomed into the Holy of Holies. That's why it was torn. Okay. And when Jesus had cried out with a loud voice, he said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last breath. Okay. The verse here is Psalms 31 verse 5. Psalms 31 verse 5. Psalms 31 verse 5. Okay. So when the centurion, yeah, because it's being stupid. When the centurion saw what had happened, he glorified God, saying, certainly this was a righteous man. Now the centurion did recognize that it's the Lord, so he didn't have that kind of discernment, but he did recognize that this was a righteous man. Okay? And the whole crowd who came together to that sight, seeing what had been done, beat their breasts in return and go, oh my goodness, he really was the Lord. But all his acquaintances, all his friends and family, and the women who followed him from Galilee stood at a distance watching all these things. The verse here is Psalms 38:11. Psalms 38:11. Okay? Now behold, there was a man named Joseph, a council member, so a person of the church basically, a good and just man. Now, by the way, that saying, a good and just man, that is good and just by his own merit, by the merit of the covenant of the Old Testament. Okay? I hate this Facebook. He had not consented to their decision and deed. Okay? He didn't agree with it, in other words. He was from Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who himself was also waiting for the kingdom of God. Okay. This man went to Pontius Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Okay. Then he took it down, wrapped it in linen, and laid it in a tomb that was hewn, which means cut out of the rock, where no one had ever lain before. So a brand new tomb. Okay. That day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew near. So this was before Friday. This was like maybe Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. Okay. And the women who had come with him from Galilee followed after, and they observed the tomb. They watched the tomb and how his body was laid. So they witnessed how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and fragrant oils. Why? Because that was in the Old Testament, that was one of the requirements when you had a burial, right? Just like nowadays, if you die, they pump your body full of, they empty your body of all the fluids, they pump out all the blood, they sew your teeth together so that your mouth doesn't gape open, they sew your eyelids shut, things like that. They basically do preparation of your body. Same thing. Okay, the fragrant oils and spices are kind of connected to royalty. Okay, it was kind of connected to royalty. And they rested on the Sabbath. So all this stuff was done prior to the Sabbath, or according to the commandment. And the last verse for this chapter is Exodus 20, verse 10. Exodus 20, verse 10. Okay, Exodus 20, verse 10. So I will see you guys again on Sunday for chapter 24. Okay, thank you guys for your time. Have a blessed day. And I'm thinking about going back and using my phone from now on, because I really hate this freezing stuff. It's really pissing me